Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of Pulaski County Fiscal Court. Glad to have everyone here. We got some business to take care of for the county today, so we will get right at it. Ask for a 30-second pause of silence just to be blessed. We live in Pulaski County and thankful that everything in our life is great and look positive going forward. But appreciate everyone being here, and also then I'll ask for Mr. Jimmy Wheeldon to lead us in the pledge. If everyone will stand, please, for a moment of silence. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business will be to approve the minutes from the September 12th meeting. I think you have a copy of those in front of you. I do want to, on number 2 there, it's not real clear what I'm signing draws for from the last meeting. I'd like to include in that number 2 section there that is for the Foothills Academy draws, and also a resolution that the work has started. That was not included in there. They had emailed me to clarify that just a bit, so it would show up in our minutes that it was for Foothills Academy.
Motion to approve with change.
Second.
Mr. Strunk makes a motion to approve. Mr. Wilson seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item will be in new business, set the Halloween dates. The 31st is on a Tuesday, and the city, I think, is doing theirs from 6 to 8. The county normally does it from 6 till 9 on the 31st.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Renshaw makes that motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Strunk seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I've got a resolution for some discretionary funding. I don't think all the masters know about it yet, but we had applied for discretionary funding through the governor's office 2 months ago, and I was not sure we would get it, but with the help of Dr. Rodney Cassidy, he helped us carry it to the governor. I received an email last Tuesday, to be in Frankfort on Friday and to receive a check, and I sent my assistant up there. We got a check for widening and resurfacing Campground Road for $445,766, and we appreciate everybody's efforts in making that happen. I need a resolution. They have sent me some stuff that I just need to let everyone know about, that we agree to this resolution in court to receive this funding. And I'll read just a little bit of it here. It's a resolution adopting and approving the execution of a memorandum of agreement between the Pulaski County Fiscal Court and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet in the amount of $445,766 for Campground Road.
Motion.
Mr. Wheeldon makes that motion. I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Renshaw seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That was a little bit unanticipated. I wasn't for sure we were going to get it. I talked to the Commissioner of Highways, and they said they were out of money, but they dug around and found us a little bit, so we appreciate all that worked together to get that done. We look forward to doing that project.
As a resident of Campground Road, I want to thank Dr. Casta and the governor and you. That road desperately needs widening. Thank you.
We are going to do some work on it. As soon as we get this paperwork into Frankfurt, get everything approved, we will be at work up there. Also, I have one other item. Some of you may not know, but we are moving a Veterans Administration office here in the Pulaski County Courthouse. Congressman Rogers had contacted me 2 months ago about one they had in London, and they would like to have one in Pulaski County, so we have approved. I need approval from the court to furnish an office. It's room 305 upstairs, and they are ready. They have hired someone to run the office. They're going to start October the 1st, and it'll be taking any veteran complaints or needs. It'll be upstairs at that office, and they're ready to start opening on October 1 with training for a week, and they'll be ready to go. And I've got a lease agreement, and I think most of you have that in front of you. All we're doing is supplying the office, but we're not getting any money for it. It's just goodwill. But we have to approve it to do janitorial work and stuff like that. It's basically just to keep the door open. If we can get that approved, then that person will be ready to go to work here. They are paid through the Veterans Administration. It's not costing us anything.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Wilson makes a motion. Mr. Renshaw seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Around for Anthony. We're supposed to do a feasibility study on the jail, and the person's not here just yet, so we'll pass that on down the line here. Frank in Fleet Maintenance.
First thing I got is I want to ask permission to hire Tyler Mueller.
Position, mechanic.
Yeah, diesel mechanic.
Motion.
Second.
Charlie makes the motion to hire Tyler Mueller. Mr. Wheeldon seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
When to
passes.
start, Frank?
As soon as he can. I think he's got some places to be next week on fall break, and then we'll do it after that. I got a little information back on the sale of our Macs, if you're all interested.
Sounds like we've done pretty good.
We did do very good. Overall, they brought $40,000 to $50,000 above what we paid for them.
Yeah.
There was some of them a little higher, some of them a little less, so they've done real well. And then we have a bid opening for our lease vehicles buyout.
I had a question on Max trucks.
Okay,
Do we have replacements ordered for those?
they're
or
here.
Huh?
Already
Oh,
used.
they're already here,
Yep.
okay.
They're already using them.
I try to get it worked out to where we have them before we ever leave with these.
Yeah, because I was wondering because of the
Yep.
build time on
Yep.
those things right now.
Well, that's one reason we pushed it off to the September auction, because we didn't have them, because we normally take them in May. So we had to push them off.
So what was do you know exactly what the total amount we made above what we paid for 'em?
Well, total, no, I don't, because with interest and everything, I don't know exact that number.
Do you have an estimate?
I know that what they sold on auction was almost $250,000 above what we paid for them.
Minus interest?
But there was minus commission from the sale, and then there was interest and all that, so I don't know what the exact number
So
is.
roughly about, we probably netted about 200,000.
Not hardly that much.
I'm gonna say it's probably closer in the 50 or 60,000.
I mean, you said a piece, but I'm talking about total for all four,
Yeah, I'm
right?
talking, no, for all four, it's probably gonna be
About
50 or
200.
60,000 by the time we pay the interest and the commission.
On each of them, so.
No.
Oh, so total would be 50 or 60,000
Right.
net
Yeah.
after expenses, okay.
Yeah.
Ready, Frank?
Yep.
All right. I have one bid here. It's from Don Franklin. For 11 vehicles, 11 used vehicles. Of course, each one of them, you want me to go through each vehicle? All right. The total is $373,108. 373,108 for all 11 vehicles.
Are those, just quick general question, is that higher than what we would have
It is.
ended up, well, a year ago?
Bought them a year ago cheaper than,
We could have bought them a year ago cheaper than releasing them for 12 months, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm trying to figure out how the residual value went up on them in 12 months. That don't make sense. It should have gone down. Huh?
The figures I have a year ago now, last October, we could have bought them for $341,833. Today's bid was $373,108.
And I
We,
think,
the price has gone up $31,274, and we have paid $78,795 in lease for an extra year. These are 4-year lease vehicles. I think we need to do some serious negotiation with Don Franklin on these.
I think this is all a result of us saying, okay, lease it and not worry about the contract until, go ahead and just release it and we'll worry about the contract later. This is why I think we need to be more vigilant as a court to just say, okay, just do it and then we'll sign the contract later and let them input whatever numbers later, and now a year later, we're paying more instead of less. We should be paying less than what we should have paid last year, because the residual value should have gone down.
The
So, I don't know.
residual value right now is 270,000. So we're about 100,000 over.
So the residual value right now in our current contract is, so we can buy out those current contracts for that 270, if I'm right? You can buy out
I
the
think that's-
residual value.
I think that's going to be negotiated with Don Franklin and us.
Yeah.
That's what we got to determine.
Yeah, because I don't see us, well, we should be paying more for something that we kept for another year and paid lease payments on, and then end up having to pay more for them at the end.
You want to accept the bid for review?
Yeah, I make a
Only-
motion, we accept the bid for review.
Mr. Renshaw makes a motion to accept bid for review. Do I have a second?
second.
Mr. Strunk seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next is solid waste. Misty?
We would just like to request the court's permission to hire Brittany Wesley as a part-time employee.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Strunk makes a motion. Mr. Wheeldon seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item would be Road Department. We have a road to take in this morning to Pulaski County Maintenance, Stone Marker Drive. We had a public hearing on it yesterday. We didn't have anybody show up to protest or to say anything against. So So I think it's ready to take in. It connects to Hughes Lane. It's Rollin Wigginton new development. It is blacktopped. Everything's in good shape.
Motion.
Mr. Strunk makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Renshaw seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We need to approve a public hearing for Lake Mirror Drive and Waterfall Way. That's off of Oak Hill. That's Steve Merrick's new subdivision. Do we need to make a motion on that?
You don't need to.
We will have a public hearing scheduled for that and probably take that in the next court meeting. Need 1,500 tons of coal patch or hot patch.
Motion.
Wilson makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Wheeldon seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Treasurer, I guess it's your report.
I'd like to request the court's permission to promote Jessica Sturgill to Fiscal Finance Officer.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Wheeldon makes a motion. Mr. Turpin seconds. Any discussion?
Do we have to create that position first?
It's already created.
It's
We have
already
a
in our
vacancy.
admin code?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I missed one, I didn't have on my list, the road list.
Motion.
Mr. Wilson makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Renshaw seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. You have anyone here for the jail yet?
Anthony's over there.
Oh, Anthony's in jail.
The baby in the corner.
Just me. Bill Pickering, who did the study, is running a little late. Keith is here. I don't know if Keith, if you want to. A little out of order. If you want to get up, maybe he'll be here before. Sure. This is Bill, not Bill, Keith Brock. I'll let him come up and introduce himself. And this is about the feasibility study that was done a few months ago. I assume all of you got it. I sent it out to you last week. So I'll turn it over here to Keith.
Thank you. I'm Keith Brock with Compass Municipal Advisors. I know most of you all, but we're the county's financial advisors, so we're kind of the fiduciary in terms of the financing side from your all's perspective. Our role, as it relates to the feasibility, was from the financial perspective, so that's why I say it's a little bit out of order in terms of the flow here, but obviously we were asked to kind of evaluate Bill and his team at CMW kind of went through all the machinations that he'll get to hopefully when he arrives, but our role was to look at the cost and then what that would look like from a financial perspective. And so I think part of that analysis is in that packet, and I can get into some of that to the extent y'all want to in terms of the financial feasibility part of it. But essentially, I think the conclusion was, depending on the size and the scope of the potential jail, you're looking at a price tag somewhere around $45 million to $52 million in terms of the build out, and then what that would look like over a hypothetical financing, of 20 to 30 years from a debt service perspective. You're looking at somewhere around 2.8 million to 3.5 million, give or take, in terms of the annual budget impact just for the debt service. But the the financial analysis is, I kind of view this as the kind of the first step of the process, right, in terms of looking at the feasibility standpoint going forward. So I apologize in terms of not being able to go through the rest of the feasibility piece, but I'm happy to discuss any of the financing components.
Well, we haven't, I know I just received a whole packet in an email last week, so I haven't even had time to review it, but just from what this summary that we received today, quick glance, $53 million is a lot of money that we're going to have to figure out how to pay for as a county. And looking at these numbers, like on the 650 beds facility, you got debt service of over 30 years of $3,292 a year. And from what I've seen back here, that's based on roughly a 4% to 5% interest rate. We know the interest rates has gone up since then, so that would increase, right? Or is
Correct.
that-
I mean, I think.
we're looking at 7 or 8% now, right?
No, that's a little high, although, the last couple of days has been rough in the bond market. If you're long some bonds, I'm sure you've seen that. But yeah, the interest, anytime you're looking at a project of any size or scope, right, especially one this significant, all along the process, you're really taking on what we call construction risk, right, the cost of the actual construction as well as the interest rate risk. And so you kind of got to go through the steps of any project like this. But so to your point, yes, that's a variable from a feasibility standpoint. And so when we think in those terms and we put a snapshot in front of you, right, it's really good for the day and can change. As we try to be conservative with that approach, but you really need to kind of evolve into kind of what we look at in terms of, the base case, but then, what's best case and then what's worst case, not only from a cost of capital standpoint and a project cost, but really almost more importantly is the operational side, right? And that's going to drive the budgetary impact, even as much as the debt service side.
That's my next question.
Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to jump ahead of you.
But the annual expenses, is that showing with increased employees, increased utilities, is that?
Yeah, I think, Bill, come on up here just in time. I'm struggling up here to talk about your feasibility study.
All right, first of all, thank you for your patience in me being late today. I'm Bill Pickering with CMW, and I'll just step in and...
Well, he was asking an operational question. We were talking the numbers, which in terms of the debt side, but I was way ahead of that. So, Mark, if it's okay, maybe we can let him kind of just start and give you the basic overview and then get into your operational question.
Yeah.
Just in time.
Well, first of all, the jailer asked CMW to evaluate feasibility study for a new replacement detention center. And we looked at essentially 3 options. First option, which is what the jailer was looking for, was a 650-bed facility. Second option was a 450-bed facility, and essentially it was just simply reducing the number of beds from the 650 to 450, but keeping the infrastructure of the building sized to allow for a future bed expansion to get back up to the 650 bed. The third option was closing the existing jail and just the county sending the county inmates to other counties. And so we evaluated, the study looked at the historical trend of the population of the jail from 2011, from historical data that was recorded with the Department of Corrections. And so we were able to look at that trend and discussing the existing jail has a rated capacity of 171 beds. And since about 2016, early in 2016, the jail has been operating at significantly overrated capacity. In about 2017, the population started exceeding 300 beds on a daily basis, and up until COVID, the jail was bumping the 400-bed line. And maybe 2 or 3 times it exceeded 400 beds on a daily basis. With COVID, that all dropped down, but what we have seen since mid-2020 to 2021 is resurgence back up, and I think now the daily population is averaging around 350 or so. 370. Yeah. And so what the jail design looked at was finding a mix of the population that the county would be able to use to support the development of the facility. You have so many county inmates that you're obligated to house essentially at no cost. And so how do you support the financial part of the facility? And that would be looking to either house inmates from other counties with interlocal agreements, or to obtain state inmates, which you have right now. It's part of the problem that your state inmates, which are Pulaski County inmates, are causing the population to really exceed the rated capacity. The other option is to develop agreements with a federal system in order to house federal inmates. So those are the options for revenue, for a revenue stream of inmates. And one thing that we always want to make a note of is that the state, in presenting this any detention project to the state will remind the county that the state will not guarantee over the life of the facility the state population. They can't guarantee that they'll be providing you X amount of inmates every day, every month, every year. But if you look at historical trend of the state inmate population that the county has to house on a daily, monthly, yearly basis, since 2011, that the trend is typically only exceeded, only increased. The facility that was designed is, as I mentioned, the primary design, 650 bed. It has an ability to expand with an additional 300 beds. And so the infrastructure has been designed to allow for that type of expansion. 650 beds, it's a mix of housing types. The Department of Corrections has a set of standards that we have to go by with the design of the facility. So it will dictate a minimum level, and then working with the jailer and the county will the proportion of different types of housing may be adjusted, but we have minimum standards to meet. So there's isolation housing, is minimum dorm housing, medium dorm housing, and some maximum housing. There's also support spaces for the housing, classrooms, multi-purpose rooms, outdoor recreation, indoor multi-purpose. Also, there's separate from housing and the support spaces, some medical areas, and then of course to support all that, there's food service and laundry, and then there's the administration areas. And so that comprises, for the 650 bed facility, we're looking at about 103,000 square feet. It's all one story, and the type of construction is because of what it has to be, it's going to be primarily concrete and steel. The facility has a lot of integration with systems, security systems, door control, And these are all expensive systems. HVAC, a lot of zoning with the HVAC systems, and the smoke evacuation as well. And so again, these systems are very expensive, and that's also what helps to drive the cost of the facility. The last facility of this size I designed was in 2017, and we have seen since that project was bid and the construction cost, we've seen the market change. A lot of inflation with material pricing and a lot of increase with labor cost. And currently, we forecast over the next year or so that material pricing will be fairly stable. But what's still volatile in the market is labor, because there's some labor shortage, there's some labor issues with qualified workers and different trades. And so those are the things that we're seeing currently that are impacting projects that are bidding. So with that, I guess I'll take further questions.
Bill, would you mind, I know many of them are asking, about remodeling or trying to take the current facility we have now. Would you mind explaining to them that process?
Well, first of all, the existing facility was built in about 1988. At the time, it had a rated capacity of I think it was like 109 or 111, and between then and 2014, I believe it is 13. There were some adjustments made, and the Department of Corrections revised how they assigned square footage per inmate, and so those adjustments allowed for the rated capacity to be increased to 161 beds. And in about 2014, the jail displaced some space and was able to create more housing to get the rated capacity up to 171. So now you're looking at an existing facility that's 30 plus years old, and in review of the facility discussion with the jailer, there were some concerns they had with the facility in terms of they saw some cracking in the brick veneer. In my review of that, I believe that the primary issue with the brick veneer of the facility is lack of expansion joints in the brick, and that can be remedied. Also, the existing roof, that was the original existing roof, appears to be still on the building. So now we're looking at a roof system, EPDM, that's because of its duration of being exposed, UV impact. The material has stretched beyond its limit, and there's a lot of stretching around the perimeter, and there's been some water infiltration into the exterior walls due to the roof along the parapet walls, and so that has caused some issues that will need to be that I recommended in our report, that if nothing else, those kinds of issues need to be addressed. Now, the existing building on the existing site. Can it be? Certainly, there are some issues in the existing building that I point out in the study that do need to be addressed. The study did not focus on the existing building, but my observation of the existing building is it does need some repair, maintenance and repair. If you're not going to do anything else, you do need to maintain it. You need probably a new roof. You need some exterior brick veneer work, add some control joints. I mentioned cracking. Well, the cracking has not appeared on the inside of the building in terms of the concrete block, the structural walls of the building. And that's why I feel confident that the issues that we've seen are minor. Now, in terms of on the existing site and being able to expand, there's a potential of it being able to expand slightly on the existing site. It's going to displace there's a storage maintenance facility building on the site that may get displaced. The restricted custody building that's in the back corner that's got a rated capacity of about 45. I don't know how it ended up being there, but it's there now, so it's sort of grandfathered in. It doesn't, it wouldn't be in a location that would be available for additional space for the building. The building most likely would want to be expanded to the backside or to the end of the building that's towards the kitchen. And I've quickly looked at it, and there may be an opportunity to gain some beds, but the other issue in adding to the existing jail is the size of the existing kitchen, the size of the existing laundry, and especially the laundry, in my opinion, is undersized for any expansion that you may do. Again, the facility, the kitchen and laundry were initially designed for a building that had a capacity of like 109. This is like 1988. And the capacity has already been increased to 171. So those, the mechanical system, mechanical spaces, the kitchen, the laundry are already burdened with that additional bed count that's in the that's occupied now. And so that's something that we could look at. Is there an opportunity to gain some beds at the existing facility? There may need to be some renovation of these other areas, for example, the kitchen, laundry, and we would need probably to add anything that is added at this point. Any housing added to the existing building would also have to be designed for accessibility. The existing building, again, 1988. Nothing was defined for accessibility. The laws have changed, standards have changed, and so there will be some issues that would have to be addressed in any spaces added onto the existing building. We'd have to look at the existing kitchen, most likely add a new replacement laundry, and evaluate other areas of the building from an operational standpoint with the jailer and the staff, if you look to go in that direction. Renovations.
How many beds do you think could be added?
Excuse me?
How many beds do you think could be added? How much could you raise the capacity?
I haven't looked at that level of detail, but maybe 50 or 60 could be added. It potentially could take that from 171 to 220 or so. Again, because there's going to be like I said, there will be some dorm housing, but the building, the facility, again, the standards define the different types of housing that would be required, and so and any expansion would have to be reviewed with the Department of Corrections and evaluate, because it's an addition and not a new facility. We would need more of their input to find out from them what they would allow and what they would allow us to kind of modify of the existing of the standards with the existing building.
I have a few questions. Sorry, I have a few questions if you have a minute. So these numbers that are presented here and what we received this morning are like the debt services on that $53 million. Does that include a overage for increased construction costs and all that, or is it going to cost us $65-70 million when it's all done? Have you worked in a certain percentage of overcost?
Right now, in the cost opinion for the construction cost, there's a contingency in that number. Now, regarding the financing number, I don't know. You'd have to talk to Keith on what he has for any contingency in there. But the construction cost, what you're seeing at the total there, if you, at the first quarter section of cost opinion, there's a line item for contingency.
What percentage did you use?
Typically, we'll have 10% at this point.
10% into this $53 million is for over.
Well, that contingency is for a few things. We obviously the site hasn't been the wild card here. The site hasn't been finalized, selected, so there could be some unforeseen issues with the site, some additional cost, and then. We work hard to keep the design as tight as we can, and so really the other part of that contingency is going to be market changes that occur more often on bid day.
Does this include the cost of property?
No, because I don't know, we don't know anything
So
about that yet.
this $53, we would have to purchase the property, and this is just for the build?
This is just for the building. It's
And
the
how
property
many
separate.
acres of property would we need to purchase for this facility?
We defined that, I believe in the site, that we would look at 10 to 15 acres would be reasonable for this project. And again, as the current jail has the, I guess we're renting the adjacent parcel of property next to the jail and having a garden. And so typically jails of this size typically like to have enough space that they can also have an on-site agriculture programs of gardening that helps to serve and support the facility, on the kitchen food service.
Okay, and then on the annual expenses, of course, the county pays all expenses for the jail. The cities don't contribute to the cost of running the jail per state law. We average, am I right, Anthony, only 100 to 150 local jailmates from the county actually in our jail system right now? The rest is all state and federal and other contracts with other counties?
Yes, we have contracts with other counties. We usually average, a lot of the inmates are either circuit court pretrial, district court pretrial. As far as actually county sentenced inmates, we may only have one or two that's actually sentenced county inmates. The others that we hold are Pulaski County inmates that are awaiting trial, basically.
And that's about 100 or 100?
That's you're looking at probably about 175. So the rest of those, most of the state inmates that we house are our state inmates that have been sentenced and that have remained in the facility. Some of them are waiting to go up to the prison system and haven't been brought up there yet, so we're still housing those as well.
Okay, and then on the annual expense side, what capacity are you using for jail population for $7,489,000 in annual expenses? Are you, on this 650, are you assuming every bed's gonna be full?
Let's see, where is it? In the, there is a population distribution, that's on the 650 bed, in terms of the projected annual revenue stream, state revenue that's based on 100 state beds. Currently, federal is based on 220 beds, and inter-county revenue is 200.
So that's roughly 520. We would have to maintain a count of 520 for these expenses and revenue, both expenses and revenue. Because if we don't have 520 in our jail, our revenue is going to drop, which is going to make the county pay more in expenses every. You're already showing in this figure $1.5 million in shortfall that the county's going to have to pay through their general fund. So if we don't fill these beds, that means the shortfall would be even higher for the county every year,
That's correct.
which would cost the county more out of their budget to maintain the jail. We're paying $1.6 million this year out of the general fund to maintain what's there now, is what's in our budget currently. And with the fact that county revenue's down, I mean, I'm just wondering how the county can maintain a 650-bed facility or even a 450-bed facility without any guarantees that we're going to be able to fill this spot. I mean, that's my question, and I look at numbers, and everybody knows I study numbers pretty good, and I don't know how we can do this without going to the county residents and asking for help to build and maintain this. You're, through some way, I mean, there's no, from my understanding, there's not much money out there, state and federal, to help build it. Am I correct?
That's
We
correct.
would have to take on the full 100% cost
That's
of
correct.
building this, buying a property, building it, maintaining it, and also to had the higher rate, which, like you said earlier, it's hard to get people to work in the jail now. I don't know how many, are you full staff now at the jail?
We're back to full staff.
Good. But there's a lot of stuff that's got to be focused in it, what we're going to do. I know it's only a feasible plan, but there's a lot of work that still has to be done to figure out how the county can pay for something like this.
And that's why we brought this to you all, to figure out which direction, we're gonna go. I mean, there's a lot of ifs in here, we did 2 different size facilities. We didn't really look at, because we just only gained about 50 extra beds if we added on to the current facility. If we added 50 beds to the 171, we're still going to be overcrowded because, we're running about 400. So that was just kind of putting a Band-Aid on things. So what we were looking at is trying to look ahead and plan for the future, trying to plan ahead for 30 years. Do we want to do a 450 bed facility? Do we want to do a 650 bed facility, or do we just want to shut it down?
Yeah.
I mean, that's to the point I think that we're at right now. So we wanted to bring this to the court and to the residents of Pulaski County and say, this is where we're at. These are just projections that we're looking at. There's no guarantees. Like Bill said, the state's not going to guarantee that they're going to give us inmates, even though, we know we're going to get some state inmates. Of course, we do have a contract with the federal system, and, we do have contracts with other counties right now to house inmates. But there is no guarantee that, hey, all these beds are going to be filled.
Yeah, and then my other thing is, just since this feasible study's been done, the interest rate just keeps going up. So
And
anything we do.
That's another thing that we've got to look at too. If you all try to revisit this a few years on down the road, then what's the cost of it going to be then? It's.
Back a few years ago, we could have built 800 beds for 35 million
Right,
when we was looking at it.
right.
And we was looking at this a few years ago and should have pulled the trigger on it then, I guess, but, same deal, where we're gonna get the money. But if we close it down, you're gonna spend almost 4 million a year housing them somewhere else.
Right.
I mean, it's a catch-22. I mean, something you gotta have, but you gotta figure out how to pay for it.
Right, and I think, Bill's covered, we're at the point now where we're gonna have to do something with the current building. We're gonna have to, the roof's gonna have to be replaced, so, we're having trouble with, one side of the heating. So we're starting to see problems that are gonna come up that's gonna be expensive problems. Do we wanna put a Band-Aid on it? What, basically, we're bringing this to see which direction do we wanna go now. The judge and I have met with, a company about, some land purchases. And like you said, that's gonna be above and beyond.
That's gonna be expensive too. So, but, I just worry about the future and the cost. I mean, if we can't fill these beds, even from the get-go, how are we gonna get 520 people in there? So we're gonna have a big issue where the county's going to have to pay a lot more out of their general fund. And I'm looking at the fact where we already know the sheriff wants more money. We already know retirement costs over the next 3 years is gonna go up $1 million a year. So my whole issue is without, and you hate to say it, but without the county's help with an increase in what they're providing to the county, I don't know if it's feasible or not. So, I mean, that's the thing we're gonna have to look at.
And that's what they call a feasibility.
And the ongoing expenses of it, yeah.
Exactly.
So,
One thing that's going on in Frankfurt right now, as you guys all know, is,
lawsuit.
no, well, that too, but they're also, in the interim here session, there's a committee, I think a joint committee with the Senate and the House that's doing studies, or taking testimony regarding what the state's gonna do. I mean, they're shorthanded too, which is why they're leaving, they don't come and pick inmates up from the counties. They're shorthanded on housing, so you may have a better idea as far as long-term, what the state's plan is as far as housing inmates with local facilities after this committee finishes their work this summer, Anthony. I know you've been involved in attending those and keeping an eye on it.
I mean, if we had a way to just guarantee that we're gonna fill up a 650 bed facility, you know, that would be almost a no-brainer to go ahead and maybe do something like that. But there's no guarantees we're gonna have 650 beds filled, and, you know, this study's on 520, and there's 400 and how many's in our jail system? How many's in our jail right now?
We got about 378 today.
378 in our jail right now, so.
We've been pushing up to 400, but we've been lucky to get some of them moved up to the state. But our numbers are starting to go back down before. I'd say for this time next year, we'll be back over 400 again.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions involved in all this of how are we going to pay for it? How is the citizens of this county going to pay for it? So that's going to be a big issue down the road here as we keep looking at this. So.
That's why we brought it to you all to here it is. And
Those state inmates, do you kind of have to push them to come get those inmates, or are they calling you saying?
No, it's like Martin said. They're supposed to get them after 45 days, but they've been leaving them there for months. And that's just because they don't have the staffing nor the beds at the facilities. One thing you'll find at the state is the state won't overcrowd themselves. They'll write you up for being overcrowded, but they're not going to overcrowd themselves. So unless they've got a bed available, they're going to leave them in the county jails until that bed becomes available. Then they'll bring somebody up.
And then they don't even pay us enough
Right.
to handle the cost of having that inmate. So the counties has that burden a little bit. They don't cover the cost of us housing that inmate. They do a little bit, but it doesn't cover it fully.
Right.
They don't pay for health care. They don't pay for, we have to pay for our own health care. They won't even put them on Medicaid or anything like that. We still have to pay for all
You still
that.
have to pay for
So.
them. That's exactly right. And I think even, I think they're, take a state reformatory, they've closed portions of it down because it's old and outdated as well. So, I mean, they've lost bed space there, so.
Was the state working on revitalizing a couple places to open up more beds?
Yes.
Am I right on that? Is that what I read? So they're actually trying to open old places that they shut down for additional beds. So all that's got to be factored in. So.
Another thing just to be aware of is if you decided today to go ahead and proceed with the project, it's 3 years approximately from today before you're moving in. There's a process with the Department of Corrections. If you decided today to proceed, there's a process with them, a committee, a construction committee that reviews to approve you, giving you authority to proceed. Then the facility is designed, takes a number of months for that, goes out to bid, and then construction is going to be 2 years. So the first year is the planning and design and bidding, and the next 2 years is construction. So again, everything we're talking about are long-term durations, which also affect everything you're describing regarding financing and cost.
And are we paying all these finance costs as you're building versus once it's, so there's a lot of like $3.9 million each year to come up until it's built. Where is that in our budget?
There's some financial ways to mitigate some of that concern, but again, that's the evolution of this process in terms of developing that funding plan, right? So this is kind of, I see the initial step, and then you gotta kind of work through all those. We talk about it in terms of your all's goals and objectives, right? And if trying to be budgetary neutral in the build-out phase is the goal, then we can look at financing in such a way. But none of it's free, right? So if you're deferring it other things that we can do to mitigate budget impact from the financing side is to look at your existing debt structure and try to mitigate this additional cost on top of it. Where you're looking at, we just looked at what would it be on a level payment basis. And then as the you know, the working pro forma, so to speak, of the operational side comes into clearer focus, you know, then we need to look at the financing, not only from the operational side of the jail, but in the context of the entire county budget. And I think that's you know, where a lot of your questions have.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're trying to find $100,000 here, $100,000 here now in this budget. How are you gonna come up with $3.9 million in the future budget before the jail's even open? Yeah, there's a lot of questions that we gotta look at, so.
And Anthony, do you know of any other counties that's built jails recently?
Laurel County is wanting to expand their facility. So I know that they're wanting to expand. Boyle County, I think, is looking to build, or may have already approved to build, but there's another county in western Kentucky, I think, that's in the process of building. And of course, with Graves County got hit with a tornado, they're having to rebuild too. So there's a few projects going on. You know anymore?
Well, Ohio, Butler, Edmondson, they're looking at a 300-bed facility, but that's been going on for months now. And I think they have the same exact issue that you have in terms of the ability to afford the cost of it.
Now, the jail down in, is it London or Corbin that was just built?
Well, Laurel County and then also Knox County.
They have, from what Anthony, I think what you told me, is they're net positive on income or?
County.
Huh?
Laurel County.
Laurel County. Now, do they have agreements? We really don't get that many federal employees, federal inmates, right?
Yeah, the one reason we don't get a lot of federal inmates is because, one is we don't have the space to put them in. Two is, you know, most of them are going to Laurel County. I think if we had the space to put them, I'm sure the feds would give us more, but right now we just don't have the space to put them.
And is Laurel County using all their bed space right now? They're full up on, and that's.
They've got enough revenue coming in where he's running in the black, so I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
I don't know
talking.
exactly if he's got, but I mean, he's.
How many beds is that?
Laurel County has 670 beds.
But I'm just trying to figure out how he's managed to fill those beds and make it.
Jamie's good at that.
So,
A lot of us jailers have been trying to find out his secrets, but he won't tell them.
I'd like to, you know, we talked about this before, about going over there and sitting down with them.
Right.
And
he would be more than.
Maybe sometime this winter, you know, my business slows down and I got extra time, maybe we can try to go over there and take a look at that. But I'm just there's a lot to this.
There is a lot.
It's not going to be simple, and it's going to be hard to figure out where to get the money at.
And this is, like I said, this is our first step to see which direction we want to go.
I mean, it wouldn't be bad if our federal government will let us use that infrastructure money to build jails, so.
Well, currently, right now, you have an existing facility that has a rated capacity of 171. Daily population is running between 300 and 375. The existing facility, the site is limited, and as I mentioned, it does need some repair, maintenance work. We could look at, if you want that to be done, we could look at how we could maximize that site with an expansion, an addition. I don't believe that would be able to cover up to 450 beds, obviously, on site, but if that's something that you want to consider, a project like that may be $5 to $9 million for an expansion like that on an existing building. And again, it would have a similar time frame. It would be about 2.5 years from now before it would be fully completed because of the complications of renovation.
Can we can we look at that as an option? I mean, can we
That's-
look at,
that's up to
have
you.
set something drawn up to look at our existing, what we have? Maybe that might be a better option at this point, but not all cure all, but I don't know. I mean, something that the public could probably handle or something like that, or,
Part of the concern that I'm hearing is the question of the risk that you take on not knowing
it's
how
a,
many state inmates you're going to, because really the driving force here is that revenue stream of inmates.
yeah, we would have to have that I mean, to pay for everything, we would have to have what what you're saying is 520. And then you're talking about all the employees and all that, just to meet all this revenues, all these expenses, so you have to have a high count to be able to put in there from the get-go.
But the other reality of an addition would most likely be that you will still not operate in the black, because you'll still be overcrowded even in that scenario. But it would be, you'd have more favorable conditions in the facility.
And are you talking about the current service facility or
Well, yeah,
the?
if you were to add on to the existing facility and renovate, you would improve the conditions, but you'd most likely still be
We're still being
overpopulated.
crowded. We can't
Yeah.
add on enough to
Exceed,
exceed the number of account of inmates. We can't exceed that. We won't be able to build enough beds to get that number.
It's basically a fixed variable cost, and when you're looking at the debt side of it, that's a big fixed cost, right? And so the incremental revenues that you generate from paying inmates is what's gonna make the math work out. And so when, you never wanna overbuild, right? But if you wanna optimize, and that's the big $1 million question, how do you optimize? And what is that right number? Because that's where you're gonna get the most design efficiency and operational efficiency of it. You know, and obviously in Laurel, it's worked out, but you know, it's the big unknown.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to know how they did it, that where you're in the black.
It's.
I mean, that's a key. I mean,
Yeah.
if we can pay for it, that's a difference between paying for it and not paying for it. So how are they doing it that? That's what we need to know. So,
And another thing, even if we add on, we've still got the same amount of inmates, so we're still bringing in the same amount of revenue. So we're not gonna make the revenue back in to be able to pay for the.
right, because, let me ask another question. Are we taking in state inmates? Or are we,
Though, yeah.
or what we're getting is from the ones that already been through court waiting to go somewhere? So we're actually taking in-state
Most of
men,
those are our state inmates.
our state
Yeah,
inmates,
the ones that
but,
have been sentenced out of court. So
but we are taking them in additionally, right? From the state's giving us those inmates, or are they just waiting to go through
they're
somewhere?
waiting to go somewhere.
So we're
The
not
only-
taking it
The
in.
only time that we would bring some in is if they're level 1 or level 2 and able to go out and work in the community. And we've got some extra beds out there in the CPOT facility. So that would be the only way that we would bring inmates, but there are no level 1s or level 2s out there right now that anybody's willing to send out or trade.
So we're
So-
taking these inmates in, and we're paying for part of their expenses.
Yeah, there are inmates,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you answering a lot of questions. I think this is gonna help the community understand a little bit more too, so I appreciate answering my questions.
I've been doing this for 30 years with different counties over the time, and no one has solved it yet.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other issues to come before the court? Citizens' comments, do we have anyone that wants to comment on anything? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Wilson, a second. Second by Mr. Whitman. All in favor, say aye. We will stand adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.